Gilg J as Gilg Nerach.
Hello, as Bawaliam Shua Shaholtakurgus a Claare Shaw, Claare na Gael. My name is Robert Cutting Carswell, or Robert a Carslach.
Have you ever had tell of old Bobby Bob?
This programme, Claare na Gael, is one in which you'll hear the English language as Angenius Cynishua Rilg, and in which too you'll hear the Manx Gaelic, Chinianamera, the mother tongue of Ellen Vanning, the Isle of Man. As Banach and Durish. In a review of the Manx History, adjoined to his tour through the Isle of Man, David Robertson tells us that on the death of the exiled but still very powerful King of Norway, Magnus Barefoot, the Manx people invited Olave of the dynasty of Godred Crovan back, and all was well until Olave went to pay homage at the Norwegian court. Tan Olave van Helsing corebe Lordrich Arthur Holmwood mchion veneg ve nastrich Lucy Westenra. Te chitori sanaiekes te maru, maidalur, ach esh te corafesh, cre mana veli maru. Now we heard this year's Pen Bagad Cap Caval last time. This time we start with an arrangement of a traditional song in Breton, yarig wenn, the Little White Hen, sung by KANERIEN BRO LEON from the commune of Landiviziau, and that's a commune northeast of the city port of Brest. Tashu geestiach rish radio vanning, stashu na nation, biskol scalia mark by Dulish, Ellen Vanning. Well, we've heard Gérard Pandavin as a pianist accompanying Breton singer Mona Caris in Claare na Gael before now, but that was his arrangement of the traditional Breton song yarig wenn, sung by KANERIEN BRO LEON LANDIVIZIAU, a recording made in 1953. Now, David Robertson's A Review of the Manx History continues like this. On his, Olave's, return, he found his kingdom agitated by the violence and intrigues of his three nephews, who had now a considerable army at their command. Being perhaps more anxious for the peace and welfare of his subjects than the maintenance of his regal dignity, Olave proposed an accommodation with his nephews. The two armies accordingly encamped near Ramsey, at a little distance from each other. Between the armies, the king, the princes, and their respective nobility assembled. During their deliberation, Reginald, one of the princes, pretending to salute the king, with one blow of his battle-axe beheaded him, while this detestable act was only a signal for the general slaughter of his nobility and the most ferocious oppression of his subjects. But the crimes of these atrocious brothers didn't long elude the vengeance they merited. Ren Arthur lima sus de vein a chiado, gra ye delia, creit how menel. Rau marinus erbis a chush, rau ion lookitjes is bio. Ren e sachel ons angesh, na vodach I trechsdale coresh de. Cha dort mi de rau I bio, Marilia. Rau mi smunion masen. Chanel mi grain a sorgen and de grey fuddy, de veli niau varu. Niau varu? Chaneli bio, creit how menel, ne droch ashley shawl you na kirite. Da ridden folliach dach oru na vod deniach cor shieldness, as fuddy na velet feesle, ling ach ons pert. Cred me, ta sin nish bunnes chit verjau. A chanel mi jint. Wel kid thou, Giara G. Kion and inna Lucy Varu. Dar njouwers tollo hanel, Gilly Arthur erfenu. Ha jinnums on a cledden tail cordailrish lodder bead and chorp marowek. Leave van Helsing, tau prowl me rower. Creit way jintem, the jinnach who torchach me san ach shaw. Now, with the Festival Anti-Celtique de Lorient just coming to a close, in fact the Manx party flew back in just this afternoon, this is a band from Galicia, and they're called BERRAGUETTO.
No sé por qué, no sé cómo, no sé dónde, no sé cuándo, pero entre Fusco y Lusco estaré aquí aguardando. Dime por qué, dime cómo, dime dónde, dime cuándo. Sabes que entre Fusco y Lusco seguiré aquí esperando.
Cantaron
Galician band BERRAGUETTO, no longer performing unfortunately, but that was a song called Fusco, The Dusk. Claare wenn ag bach ville shen, de jinnach giri cordia de viona eranayak. Velle was de heel, de velu lordje lidna ridden, ne vel mishas michiel de heestjachru. Ne ljoos dat smunjen de soja rid an chasrik jen lid shen, had jinnum cormachid de ridder beat out de jinnu. Da cormorum de chulina ons coda an ayak, nai droch elal, as dar gi, nim chulina shen. Jiri van Helsing bain bol vein haiul en tre sjo as doorte de trom chushag as de lochtel. Lord Godalming. Ta currum orms nis de chudina. Currum benten de slaelia, benten duts, benten de nemeriu, as dar gi ni mishkulina shen. Oliu tamishira ors nish, shen de hit merum, de velu gien as geestjach. As manna velu na sanmi, trevis an onjiri curricem ort, smoo gien de chulina na mish, esh, nim chulina ma churrum, creer beavis gien dow de way. Now we find out now how these three truculent nephews of Olave get their comeuppance from their cousin, and that's as David Robertson goes on with the story. Godred, the son of Olave, in 1143, returning from the Norwegian court, where he'd been left by his father, the whole island spontaneously submitted to him, and, with unanimous consent, delivered to his vengeance the three sons of Harold, two of whom were deprived of their eyes, and the murderer of the king publicly executed. When Godred assumed the government of his kingdom, he was in the bloom of youth and beauty, majestic in his stature, magnanimous in his sentiments, and heroic in his actions. These graces, united with the remembrance of his father's virtues, gained the adoration of his own subjects and the admiration of the neighbouring kingdoms. From the celebrity of his virtue and heroism, the people of Dublin and the nobility of the province of Leinster elected him their king. And that's a tune called Three Spires, a reference to Truro Cathedral in Cornwall there, which I was visiting just 11 days ago it was, and that was played there by Cornish duo LESKI with Carenza on hammered dulcimer and Richard Trethewey on fiddle. Asún and asún to radio vanning, as an short as you gauge Jachrish Claare the Gael, Merin Peen, Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Did the ever hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
To Claare the Gael reclash and rishacht and luggy gulder in scalia chidgeert, inedega radio vanning, truden graman agert. Sun inedega shenjes, ta imbedi Claare and radio vanning elier again agert. As more podcast, yes, as the podcast Claare na Gael again nasty inedega radio vanning, na trud a reich de jou podcast elia. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, na Alexa. Now, this singular honour, Godred's being elected king by the people of Dublin and the nobility of the province of Leinster, involved him, says Robertson, in various contests and subjected him to future misfortunes. Murchar, king of Ireland, opposed him, but Godred, having routed the enemy, seated himself on the throne to which he had been raised by the suffrages of the people. His absence, however, occasioned discontents among his hereditary subjects, which were fomented by the factious and turbulent. To calm these, he returned to Man, and, having severely punished some of the disaffected, Thorfinus, a subtle, sullen and ferocious chief, fled to Somerled, this is Sorley, Thane of Argyll, and brother-in-law to Godred. This bold and ambitious prince was soon instigated by Thorfinus to invade the Western Isles, which he soon reduced. In the meantime, Godred equipped a fleet of 80 vessels and engaged him at sea. A dreadful conflict ensued, which terminated in a doubtful victory, occasioned a division of the Kingdom of the Isles. As esh, ons eirte yirien de wushlid, nim cormihin rare da eigne de chorkunta Dutch, egen tre as savol taugiri. Van chorege tochtich begen, as hai les chore lende chimmer. Ach, tammy gwiot, na jingle roshens corrirum. Ons bij jouw de overigen, as de menig gerauwe jeste jino, as van a kuurten kor dogger ons megree, herau rieuw kormorm getrom as nish. Krijt me wissen tre chit de hande gochlaen agnied bent en douw, nie onschilje glennemach ulju en oorshaw getrimshach. Son jinnens kreierbi oddes dunje de hawelu vai segen. Son kren vij jinnens korarm quish over, as quish segen. Tamir jit de so vain chirempien, de jinno ne wadams Jemaias. Toyach de vleesel machare John, as esch de groene lesh ben neg willish, as henk mish nis, de weegraaie gurry. We're off to the Scottish Gaeltacht now, but a very westerly one, because this one is in Seattle in Washington State. Angus Doom MacNichol wrote this song while leading a creative writing, poem I suppose at the time, while leading a creative writing workshop in Seattle, and Christine Primrose, who was also working there teaching Gaelic song, adapted a traditional tune for the lyrics. So this is Do Gael Chiatil, to the Gaels of Seattle.
Jones siar edd gachard agos gelawn miol Wgar paleg o fad John y hiomer I chentol ac o'r habish legad agos giaull
Christine Primrose singing her setting of the words of Angus du MacNichol, and she was accompanied on the harp by Alison Kinnaird and the whistle by Duncan MacGillivray. Son, Tammy Goilniere de Grey Huishach, Tammy de Grey de Kinjil, Ren mi Corshen Hugus, a fool as Machushlian. Ren mi Cori, Narau, Gurachin a Graidek, ach veg ach a ferliek as a carek. Ren mi corgi ma eichen as ma len. Rosh bes, lurk bes. As modus a bes em ginu mai gi nish, treti gin de ve maru ach teen a nyau varu, bi shenek de ser. Dort he shaw lesh morn fi traumas villish. As ren shaw de moor Arthur. Gawe lau a chian dunjas doorte ons coré hachtit, o stoli as munjen as genodum tiggele, ach eg a goed sloen jem gul murt, as few. As nish cabdal shejeg, gilen a fairly siwrt Claare. Vi kaart keru oer rosh mein li tre chosen shin stiachse rollik herish of alle angel. Van nie dorge les verlezen nesjes nish jen rei holles, trut na dorlischen ons de bajelen trauma voor rai rogerie herrische spare. Godred retained Man, and the other islands were ceded to Somerled, sorely. However, in 1158, Somerled, presuming in the factions and discontents which still existed among the natives, invaded and subdued Man. The king escaped to Norway, and Somerled, with much ferocity, oppressed those whom he conquered. His ambition increasing with his success, he projected the reduction of Scotland, but in attempting to land his forces he was vanquished by a small body of the inhabitants, and with his son and the greater part of his army was sacrificed to their just vengeance. Freed from the tyranny of this usurper, the nobility and people of the Isles fondly remembered the virtues of their hereditary prince. His exile and sufferings had endeared him to the loyal, and from the disaffected had obliterated the remembrance of every injury. While the esteem of the people was thus directed towards Godred, the kingdom of the Isles was invaded by his illegitimate brother, Reginald. It's funny, every time there's a problem, it seems to be a Reginald who carries it with him. Now, these are Welsh siblings Elan Mererid, Margaret Airy, and Gwilym Bowen Rhys from Eryri, performing as the trio Plu with a song called Sgwennaf Llythyr, I'll Write a Letter.
Sgwennaf lythyr atant, papur gwyn a dy gyfeiriad. Teithia dros y gwyntoedd cryfion, at fy ngheidwad fy neffroad. Bod ffiniau yn gwahanu o mor agos yw dy gwmni. Mor galed dwi'n dy gydio y pellter hwn sydd yn dy boeni. Diwrnod sydd nes dal wedi ti'n gwybod y doen o. Diosg dy amheuon deifian ddwg i fewn dy galon. Gollwn fynd ar fod yn ddigalon a dal hapus ffrwy wrth ei gor. Diwrnod sydd nes daw y dydd, ti'n gwybod y doen o. Agor drws I mewn i'r diliw. Mi fydda fy nonau ddim crwydro ymhellach na dy freichiad triw. Diwrnod sydd nes daw y dydd, ti'n gwybod y doen o.
The trio pli, meaning feathers, telling us that I'll write a letter, and as well as keeping an eye on the Festival Celtic de Lorient on the week, I was also busy watching the Eisteddfod Genedlaethol, and pli were at the T Werin and other performance areas on the Maes at the Eisteddfod. The Manx, with much bravery, opposed Reginald's forces, but through the treachery of one of their leaders were defeated. However, on the fourth day after the battle, Godred, with a numerous army, arrived from Norway, and having vanquished Reginald, was received by his subjects with the most generous and loyal affection. After his reestablishment on the throne, he visited the more remote parts of his kingdom, and on his return to Man, the usual residence of the kings of the Isles, he devoted the residue of his reign to the welfare of his subjects. And a footnote here tells us, on the celebration of his marriage with Fingala, the descendant of the royal family of Ireland, Godred endowed a small plantation of the Cistercian order at Fusco, conjectured to be Ballamona in Christkirk-Lizare, the monks of which were afterwards incorporated with those of Rushen. And King Godred continued, says Robertson, until 1187, when he died, justly revered and lamented by him. Rensinol yw tannacht yn ons achteniach fagus de Gaelia, as van Helsing beggen erchion as eshenly Gael yn red. Trefas yn ergit fagus yn tai meriw, ich mi de Kerelach Arthur, nod rau alem de jinnach ve ergere de bol as huis trimsjes a chunion cochiontrish cor burra ersen. Ach, renne immerke heen de mai. Van mi shielden de rau eer foliach a junno ons achteniach liedel a grau. Doschel en alu glas a dorish, as fagen leest de duchesach na maastein son cochlei en or, renne cor sha a dolied liorish heen golstiach on hojacht. Dair na firelia gin ersen, as renne duna a doris. Esh, dode londer sulia, as renne shina meer a choffin. Gau Arthur kesmet erai de leeste. Dort van Helsingrum, vau is merm en shaw jay, rau korp en inna Lucy se choffin shen. Wij. Hien day en alugus na firelia. The rhythm of the jota, a dance from Asturias. Asturias also takes its place at the Festival Celtic de Lorient, and we heard Joaquin Amieva on the gaitas with the band Dobra, which includes his wife Paula. Audio Station and Ashun Radio Vanning, a she Claare na Gael to a clash and cartnish, Mish Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Have you heard tell of owl Bobby Bob?
Dorte. Tashu clash and shen. Ysni iaich yn el pecher bi na fel crel mortamish. Gawi a scrodda der egge, as rish gawi a fargel vain choffin. Ich arthur a shaw, 4 níl, ach na host. Trev an fargel gotch vai, gawi kesmid ai. Te gian rau fissegge rau coffin lion, na egge who slew na rau smunnion her. Tre honnig a scults a lai, ren the fool rijstjags in Edenegge, rishalid. A gebu ren I rijmaag aas genius, rau tannachten ben a scan. Ve forst na host. Ren van Helsing imid Jane Yart de jarn schies a cooler lai, as rentjen ulju Jane stjach on, as limmer gaurn en drummer, svolum van coffin. Is kuste midden gelor peger bij vogel. She Quincy Morris ren bridges stjach a tostage. Allu, lor me astelier, genel me giri ach a vogel ed. Now chapter 3 brings us a review of the Manx history from the death of Godred, the son of Olave, to the Scottish conquest. It doesn't help, of course, that so many of the leading figures were known by such a small range of names, so we ended up with a series of Reginalds, Olaves and Godreds. However, we shall persevere. The long and happy tranquillity which the Manx enjoyed under the government of Godred, the son of Olave, was soon disturbed by the contests of his sons for the diadem of the Isles. Reginald, the eldest, being illegitimate, Olave was elected king. But, as the former was of a mature age and of a bold, subtle and politic genius, he soon triumphed over his younger brother. The usurper then banished the young prince to the Isle of Lewis, among the barren solitudes of which he and his faithful adherents were almost famished. From misfortune, the mind sometimes derives new vigour. Now, we've met Frank O'Donovan before now, sitting on the bridge below the town. He's been to big cities, he says, but he still loves the road by the river, and that's the one that flows through Rathkeane.
Sure, I've walked along Broadway, I've been down the Strand, and I've seen the great highways of every land. But in all the big cities, the like I've not seen of the road by the river that flows through Rathkeane. I can see myself now as a gossoon of 4, as I climbed to look over the creek and half door, for to see the sunshine on the valley so green, and the road by the river that flows through Rathkeane. I had only one brother, a gay lad and droll. He was killed in an ambush, now God rest his soul. On the spot where he fell, a white cross can be seen, on the road by the river that flows through Rathkeane. I recall when I started in strange lands to roam, sure 'tis little I thought how I'd miss me old home, miss the old folks, the village, the valley so green, and the road by the river that flows through Rathkeane. After that, the return, expectant to find the familiar old scenes as they lived in my mind, all forgetting the years that had passed since I'd seen the old road by the river that flows through Rathkeane. Rows and rows of new houses are built on the green, and a cinema stands where me cottage had been. Oh, the river is there, but no trace can be seen of the road by the river that flows through Rapine. And so everything changes, and we change as well. But I'm sure that you too, if the truth you would tell, wander back to some well-beloved spot in your dreams, like the road by the river that flows through Rapine.
Frank O'Donovan singing one of his own songs, The Road by the River, recorded by him in 1940. He went on to have an acting career as well in, I think, a soap on RTE for many years. Olave, instead of yielding to increasing hardships, was ambitious of combating them. He returned to Man and boldly remonstrated with Reginald. But the tyrant, so far from mitigating, heightened his sufferings. The prince was delivered as a captive to the King of Scotland. I think at this time it would be William I, William Lion, also known as William Garov, or Iliam Garov, William the Rough. And and by his severity, says Robertson, was for 7 years imprisoned and loaded with chains. On the death of that monarch he was liberated, and being supported by several of the nobility of the Isles, he again returned to Man, and soon afterwards obtained a moiety of the kingdom. Reginald retained the government of Man, and part of the Western Isles was ceded to the younger brother. The pride of the usurper being, however, severely wounded by this division of the Isles, he attempted again to subject them to his dominion, but, unable to achieve this act of injustice, he sailed for Scotland to solicit the assistance of the Lord of Galloway. Chadjinan shira lied de cajin, chadjinan corlied a vionner astelier as de chorfau je auris. Ach, she foliach shaw was called chow hall je honor erbeen a me honor. Rau shaw jinted. Tammy cor maludjur, gamlisel, tammy cor maludjur de chulju ridvis kajrik thou. Na velmiang oil machasi na bentany. Shaw ma rentachert. Day der henner en misjes macharis Seward chit the saw. Les kerel mai cred you me. Doshel me a coffin shen, a tre shen vasilich, as renshin featherne, mortenish, follum. Esh renshin furachten, as renshin fagen riddenach ben chit masten a bilgin. A lair gain renshin chit the saw salay, as veen a lion shen. Naraumi machara John, Narawi machara John. Vei. An I shen was in cartons tray. Va unfeitje elje beg kailt, as renshin fedene buiste G, niau lottich, masten aien. Jair en mi chit the saw roshen laigrenia, son egen laigrenia fudin a niau veriu glaciacha. Now, we heard Three Spires earlier on as a musical evocation of Truro Cathedral, which I visited. Now here Gareth Hedges and Sue White suggest we visit Truro Agricultural Show, which I didn't.
Good people, all who hear my voice, you now have reason to rejoice. For off to Truro you may go to see the agricultural show, but don't go kissing the girls you know. A Truro agricultural show. A motley crew you will see there, fat farmers and their wives so rare. Their bouncing daughters neat and clean, with a pork pie hat and a crinoline. But don't go kissing the girls you know. A Truro agricultural show. From Newlyn, East St. Column to there's Humpback Jim and Carroty Joe. A special train upon the rail to bring all the thieves from Bodmin jail. But don't go kissing the girls you know. A Truro agricultural show. They've got a from Plymouth down, the best that ever was in town, and all the has wits and flair, but don't go kissing the girls you know. A true agricultural show. There's horses, ponies, cows and cars, all true don't do things by half. They be Devon, bulls, sheep, pigs and geese. You can see it all for a shilling a piece. But don't go kissing the girls you know. A true agricultural show. There's things up there that'll make you laugh. There's a two-legged cow and a nine-legged calf. A billy goat that comes from Wales with 16 eyes and 17 tails. But don't go kissing the girls you know. A true agricultural show. Now all around I hear them say, we'll see that show this very day. So off we go all in a row. True agricultural show, but don't go kissing the girls you know. A true agricultural show. I'm glad you'll come, I see you're here. There's thousands come from everywhere, rich and poor and high and low. A true agricultural show, but don't go kissing the girls you know. A true agricultural show, but don't go kissing the girls you know. A true agricultural show.
A song that dates back to the 1860s when the Truro Agricultural Show started, but it's attracted a number of variations since. That was Cornish duo Gareth Hedges and Sue White and Friends. Ren mi furchten an seo fud na hei, der a ren an green niri, a ren mi fagen weg. Slickly de moor der au shen a fair, skin dornenen a dorsen shen, ve garliage curragem. Novel na niau veriw surl, as ridden Elliot had the chiara. Raer, chrau, exodus on. Maso noch, roshen lai grenia, ren mi goiler sula garlied, as ridden Elliam. A shenanacht as shen feathen mach, de vel the coffin shaw follum. Emboldened by the absence and impatient of the barbarity and depression of Reginald, the Manx invited Olave to the throne, who, on his return, was welcomed by the people with reiterated shouts of heartfelt joy. As Shene Riest and Traer Jittach or Kion and Claare Shaw. As the Jaru from 7 till 9, Christy D will be here again to present 2 hours of music to chill out this Sunday evening, and at 9 you can relax with Judith Lay and her programme Sundown. We close with music by Thomas Collister and David Kilgallen from their new popular Manx Tunes album, some marches and reels. As leshen yimid corgera Claare Gael of Dracula. And so then, until the next time, this is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert the Carslach.
Old Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night. Eve, I'm a Crieru, as Ortser Lie, as my year and schedule you.